Let me begin by welcoming the new members to the committee, Senators Kaine and Murphy, Senators Johnson, McCain, Flake, and Paul. Since the full Senate has not passed the committee resolution officially seating members, I want to ask unanimous consent of returning members to allow our prospective members to participate in today's hearing. And if there is no objection, so ordered. Madam Secretary, let me welcome you and thank you for honoring your commitment to come before the committee after the Administrative Review Board's findings. You said you would after the findings were completed, and of course you had a bit of an intervening challenge, and we're thrilled to see you here today doing well, and to take time out of your schedule in these final days to discuss the tragic events that occurred in Benghazi on September the 11th, and the lessons we need to learn from that event to ensure that all American personnel are fully protected and our embassies fully secure wherever they are. In your tenure as Secretary of State and your appearances before this committee, you have always been upfront, forthright, and energetic in defending our foreign service officers and their needs, and I, for one, commend you for it. Unfortunately, the tragic events in Benghazi are a sad reminder of the inherent risks that come with diplomatic engagement in parts of the world that are struggling to build new governments from what has often been a chaotic situation, and underscore the very real courage of the unsung men and women who put their lives at risk to serve this nation's interests in those areas. Let me say I respect what you have done during your tenure as Secretary of State in representing not only this nation, but all of those in our foreign service who are on the diplomatic front line in turbulent and dangerous parts of the globe. It's a reflection of your leadership, as well as your patriotism and your abiding belief in the power of our policies to move the world towards democracy, peace, and preservation of human rights. Your candor before this committee has been a trademark of your service as Secretary of State, and I believe that every member has always welcomed your openness and your cooperation. Your letter of December 18th to Chairman Kerry was appreciated by members of both sides as another example of that openness and cooperation. Let me say we share your mission here today, and that we look forward to a constructive dialogue today to learn from the events that occurred in Benghazi and to devise policies to better protect the nearly 70,000 men and women serving in D.C. and in more than 275 posts around the world. Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glenn Doherty lost their lives on September 11, 2012, during terrorist attacks on the Special Mission Benghazi. As a committee, we honor their service to our nation, and we grieve with their families, but we also resolve to take specific actions to prevent future incidents. We may not be able to prevent every single terror attack in the future, but we can and we must make sure that our embassies and employees, starting with high-risk, high-threat posts, are capable of withstanding such an attack. To that end, Secretary Clinton and the Department have embraced and agreed to implement all 29 of the Administrative Review Board's recommendations, and today we'll hear more about the progress that the Department has already made towards implementation of many of the recommendations. But I would add that Congress is not without responsibility here. We also have an obligation to do our part to comply with the Administrative Review Board's recommendations. It is my intention to work with the members of the committee and the Department in the coming months on legislation that will improve security and better protect our employees. One of the first and easiest things that we can do is to ensure that the Department's contracting rules allow for sufficient flexibility to allow them to quickly make decisions where security is at risk, and to hire local guards not only on the basis of the lowest price technically acceptable, but on a best value basis, to ensure that we are not just checking the box when it comes to securing our building and protecting our people. State has this authority through March for Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq, but value should be a priority in all locations, and particularly in high-risk environments. We're also looking at where sole source contracting may be appropriate to respond for certain security-related contexts. The Administrative Review Board also supports expanding the Marine Security Guard program, hiring and equipping more diplomatic security personnel, and of critical importance, authorizing full funding for the Embassy Construction Capital Cost Sharing Program. The capital cost-sharing program for embassy construction was created in the aftermath of the 1998 bombings of the U.S. embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam that resulted in 224 deaths, including 11 American citizens. In its first year, it funded the construction of 13 new facilities, followed by 11 in 2006 and 9 in 2005. Nearly every year since, fewer facilities have been built than in the previous year due to both funding decreases and the fact that the allocations to the account have never been indexed to inflation. Costs in the construction industry worldwide have risen tremendously. At the current anticipated funding rate for FY 2013, the Department estimates it will be able to construct just 3 new facilities, despite the fact that there are a couple of dozen posts that have now been designated as high-risk, high-threat posts that need replacing right now. But the lessons of Benghazi aren't only about adequately resourcing our security operations. It's also about the flow of information between the Department and our foreign facilities, within the Department itself, among all the agencies engaged in international work, and between the Department and Congress. The Department should be assessing and regularly designating which posts it considers to be high threat and high risk, using that information to drive decisions about security, and reporting to Congress on security conditions at these posts. The Administrative Review Board also makes clear that there were failures in Benghazi that resulted in an inadequate security posture, and that responsibility for these failures was shared by Washington, by the U.S. Embassy in Tripoli, and by the inexact and non-status designation of the special mission. This left unclear what the security requirements of the mission were, or should be, and left staff in the field with limited ability and resources to fix the situation. Clearly, that needs to change. There are 2 other crucial points made by the Administrative Review Board that I think deserve attention on a larger scale by members of this committee. First, the ARB placed emphasis on the growing challenge faced by all American officials operating overseas of how to remain active in high-threat environments, how to get out beyond the fortified walls of our facilities to conduct the direct local interaction required for effective diplomacy. How do we remain accessible to foreign governments, civil society, and the private sector while still securing our embassies and protecting our people in these environments? Second, the Administrative Review Board correctly points out that the Department has been resource challenged for many years, and this has constrained our mission and led to the husbanding of resources to such a degree that restricting the use of resources, even for security, has become a conditioned response. This is to say that decisions about security resources are being made more on costs than on need and value. And the answer can't be to cut more from other foreign affairs accounts to fund security. That approach fails to recognize that diplomacy and foreign aid are but down payments that yield dividends to us in terms of goodwill, open borders for the export of American products, protection of our intellectual property, and most importantly, cooperation on security and counterterrorism. So there's a lot to discuss. Madam Secretary, welcome again. We very much appreciate your time. On a personal note, since this is likely to be your last hearing before this committee, and your leadership will be missed, I know I speak for many when I say that you've been an outstanding Secretary of State, an exemplary representative of American foreign policy and American values and interests to every leader around the world. You have changed the face of America abroad and extended the hospitable reach of our nation to ordinary citizens in addition to world leaders. During your tenure, you've steered us through economic crisis in Europe, changing relations with Asia, regime change in the Arab world, a momentous transition in Libya, and a trend towards global strength based on economics rather than arms. I personally appreciate the fact that you've used your office to aggressively implement sanctions against Iran. In addition to these priorities, on nearly every trip of which you have, I think, the most traveled secretary in history, you also supported, met with, and provided a voice to those individuals that don't live in the limelight: women, children, the LGBT community, and religious minorities. You made a real difference in the personal lives of so many people, and for that you have the thanks of a grateful nation. I know you will not go gently from the world stage, and I look forward to working closely with you in the future. We thank you for your service here in the Senate and as Secretary of State. We welcome you back anytime to talk about the issues of the day, recognizing that you may not care to spend any more time in that chair than you already have, but we certainly appreciate your incredible service. With that, let me turn to my friend and colleague, the new ranking member of the committee, Senator Corcoran.